Jared Alloway created safer shirts as a way to encourage folks to come out of the cannabis closet without necessarily admitting to cannabis use. Because you don't have to use cannabis to support cannabis legalization. I'm wearing a safer shirt right now, and so is Jared Alloway. So let's hear it for Jared Alloway.
Thank you, Steve Fun.
And then you can start the fight. You push your case like super hard. I know.
Why am I being a political activist if it's not making me rich? Wouldn't it be great if all political activists thought like this? I've tried to be an activist in a variety of ways, including adopting a vegetarian vegan diet, pulling a gasoline internal combustion engine out of a pickup truck and replacing it with an electric motor powered by rechargeable batteries, attending rallies of activists promoting single-payer health care, meeting in high-traffic areas like outside of a stadium before a concert or baseball game starts, while gathering signatures on petitions. And I've also made t-shirts. I made t-shirts that talked about how single-payer healthcare should be one of many options considered when we are reforming the American healthcare system. I made t-shirts that teach people that genetically modified foods exist because herbicide manufacturers want farmers to spray their herbicide all over their fields, leaving the apples alive and the dandelions dead. I made t-shirts that let people know that corporations are treated like people, and the money they donate to candidates is protected under individual freedom of speech because of a misinterpretation of the 14th Amendment, which was originally put in place to help recently freed slaves. I made t-shirts to encourage Washington state residents to talk to Senator Pam Roach about SB 5615 and 1177. I made t-shirts that teach people about the fact that marijuana is safer than alcohol. Scott Galloway, professor at NYU, said, "I believe the sun has passed midday on brand, and it started declining with the advent of Google. We defer to brands because we don't have the time or the tools to do the diligence to figure out the exact right product. The gap between you and the perfect product is huge, and you don't have time to figure it out, so the shortcut is a brand." Scott talks about some hotels that are usually pretty good, an 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. He memorizes the names of a couple of hotel brands, and doing so helps him find a hotel that he knows will be pretty good. But with new tools like Google, TripAdvisor, Amazon, etc., he can take a hotel brand that he's never heard of, look online, and learn that this lesser-known hotel is actually better than recognizable brands and sleep there. The internet is a shortcut instead of a brand. He also talks about a razor company because he is balding and likes to keep all of his hair very, very short. He says Philips, Braun, and Norelco used to be his shortcut to finding a razor. But now he can look online and find a razor made in a factory in East Germany and have the confidence to try this product from a less recognizable brand because the internet allows him to learn about it before buying it. He says the number of people who can name their favorite brand has declined in some instances by 50%. Your favorite brand is what Amazon or Google are about to tell you what your favorite brand is. Branding is dying, becoming less relevant. Part of the reason is because people Google for ingredients or effects instead of brands. Safer Shirts, as a brand, is something you can find if you look for ingredients or effects. Ingredients are shirts and paint. Effects are surprised looks on people's faces when one wears their shirt in public in a crowd. But if you look for shirts with words painted on them, you will find other people who produce similar products with similar ingredients and effects. If you Google for t-shirts that say marijuana is safer, you will find that Safer Shirts is not the only company making those shirts.
Get on stage and say,
Safer Shirts is one person. It is me, Jared Alloway. I have no intention of suing people who create products following my recipe. The recipe I stumbled across is something that can help society, and I encourage people to copy it. I make stencils and mail them out to people so they can make a shirt for themselves and their friends. People can buy shirts at the thrift shop, paint "marijuana is safer" on it, and before you know it, they're like, "I'm gonna pop some tags." And it is fucking awesome. Intellectual property law is often sold as a way for low-income folks with good ideas to climb out of poverty. This is not what it accomplishes. Supporters of intellectual property law say it is an incentive for individuals to invent and improve society, but intellectual property law actually slows societal progress. If someone has a good idea that is going to help people and they punish copycats, that doesn't make any sense. If one person discovers that humans can do something to improve their lives, they should teach everyone how to do that thing. I'm not the only person who believes we should eliminate intellectual property law. Michelle Boldrin and David Levine, professors at Washington University in St. Louis, argue that any patent system, no matter how well conceived, is bound to devolve into the kind of quagmire we're dealing with today. Here's what they said. A closer look at the historical and international evidence suggests that while weak patent systems may mildly increase innovation with limited side effects, strong patent systems retard innovation with many negative side effects. Both theoretically and empirically, the political economy of government-operated patent systems indicates that weak legislation will generally evolve into a strong protection, and that the political demand for stronger patent protection comes from old and stagnant industries and firms, not from new and innovative ones. Hence, the best solution is to abolish patents entirely through strong constitutional measures and to find other legislative instruments less open to lobbying and rent-seeking to foster innovation whenever there is clear evidence that laissez-faire undersupplies it. In plain speak, the authors are arguing that yes, having a limited amount of patent protection makes countries slightly more innovative, presumably by encouraging inventors to cash in on their great ideas without fear of being ripped off. This article talks about inventors being able to invent without fear of being ripped off. The author puts it into terms that the reader will understand. We've been living in a system where people hide their ideas until they can be revealed in a way that leads to money. I believe this not only points to the need to eliminate intellectual property law, but it also points to the need to introduce unconditional basic income. We need to eliminate any urge to hide ideas. If people have a good idea, they need to get it out into the world where it can do something. People hesitate to release ideas if they think they won't get paid. People do bad things when they desperately need money. The article goes on to say, patent protections never stay small and tidy. Instead, entrenched players like intellectual property lawyers who make their living filling lawsuits and old established corporations that want to keep new players out of their markets lobby to expand the breadth of patent rights. And as patent rights get stronger, they take a serious toll on the economy, including our ability to innovate. Old established corporations use intellectual property law to keep new players out. Washington State has a marijuana legalization law that works in a similar way, except the old players can't do business anymore. New players would be the super rich who showed up to build a marijuana factory after 502 passed. Laws like 502 and intellectual property law keep players out of the game for sure. Laws keep players out of the pull yourself up by your own bootstrap game. Lawmakers are supposed to represent us. If you were making laws, would you create a business landscape in which it was impossible to participate unless you were rich? The article adds more to this argument about getting rid of patents. There is a cost associated with letting big business create laws that make life difficult for average entrepreneurs. We can see that cost today as tech companies like Google spend billions on defensive patents which are essentially useless other than a protection against lawsuits. We see it whenever a cool startup firm is forced to license a bogus patent from a litigious troll. And we see it in the untold dollars spent on legal fees and unnecessary patent filings for ludicrously broad or impractical ideas. The author's extreme case in point. Somebody out there actually patented a method for moving information through the fifth dimension, as in faster than the speed of light. Whoever developed the patent for moving information through the fifth dimension must have been high. If anyone ever does develop a tool that will allow for the transmission through the fifth dimension, I would hope that would be open source technology. It seems like a recipe that people all over the world could follow and improve the lives of their neighbors. We have created a situation in which people actually put a patent on a thing that they may not even be able to build themselves yet. People are putting a patent on things that they anticipate someone else might make in the future. And when the person in the future makes it, they'll be waiting with patent in hand, ready to sue them and collect cash. What do we get from all this? Precious little, the paper argues. They find virtually no statistical evidence that rising patent applications actually make our economy more productive. Eliminating patents altogether, Boldrin and Levine say, would also have fewer negative consequences than most of us assume. Most industries, they argue, only resort to patent litigation once their pace of innovation has slowed. As long as they still cranked out new popular products, companies like Apple would continue to profit by being the first to market, which often confers a long-term advantage. I was the first person to make a t-shirt that said marijuana is safer than alcohol. The first person to come close to this before me wrote it on the cover of a book. The title was "Marijuana is Safer, so Why Are We Driving People to Drink?" Being the first person to make this shirt has given me a long-term advantage in a number of ways. First, a lot of the people who copy me actually point back to me. People say things, "I may have had a bunch of Safer shirts printed, but I got the idea from Jared Alloway at Safer Shirts." Being the first in the age of the internet also allows me to grab certain pieces of virtual real estate before anyone else. I understand that I am extremely lucky to some extent because I was born and raised during a time when the internet was coming into fruition. Like settlers claiming ownership of land as they moved from the colonies on the east coast of the United States toward the west, people now are scooping up addresses on the internet. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are pretty popular. Type in the @ symbol followed by Safer Shirts on any of those three and you will see Jared Alloway scooped up that piece of property first. Type safershirts.org or safershirts.com into a web browser and they will both take you to the same place, a piece of virtual property owned by Jared Alloway. I would like to be a steward of this land. The article goes on to say, the poster child for strong patent protection is usually the pharmaceutical industry, as drugs are easily copied and can cost upwards of $1 billion to develop. Here, Boldrin and Levine admit that the government would likely need to step in, but rather than giving companies a legal monopoly over their formulas, the authors suggest we should modify the drug approval process to let makers start recouping their costs faster. They would set up a prize system to reward companies that invent the new medicines we need. There is a saying that goes, good artists borrow, great artists steal. I like it because artists who are considered great are plagiarized and got away with it. Some of the greatest music of our time comes from plagiarism. A song you may be familiar with goes like this. I come from the land down under. It was created when the band Men at Work stole that idea from an old song. Kookaburra sits in the old gum tree. Led Zeppelin plagiarized much of their work. One example would be the song Dazed and Confused by Jake Holmes. Jake wrote the song around 1967, and Led Zeppelin failed to give credit to him until 2010. Puff Daddy plagiarized from a band called The Police, but eventually Sting performed with Puff Daddy live on stage at various music award shows and other events. Dr. Dre, when he was a member of the group NWA, plagiarized from Gregory Sylvester Coleman by using the drum beat from a song called Amen, Brother, performed by the 1960s funk and soul outfit, the Winstons. Around the time of the birth of hip-hop, a new term was created, the break, which basically means plagiarizing. It involved taking a section from a song recorded on a vinyl record and replaying it over and over again to make a section longer, so people at a party could dance longer. This led to the creation of the term breakdancing. Eventually, people would extend sections of songs from records while their friends used a microphone to add new vocals. People love it when we act like intellectual property law doesn't exist in music and other art forms. Plagiarism is also used on various business ideas. Many people push business ideas and act like they came up with it on their own when they actually were not the first person to think of it. I don't know if these businesses realized they were not the first person. If the business person did not know the idea existed before they put it forward as their own, that is an accident. If the business person did know that the idea existed before they put it forward as their own, that is bad. I believe in the honor system and giving credit where credit is due. I just don't believe police, courts, and judges should be involved when people fail to give credit where it's due. We have new possibilities for keeping each other accountable with the internet. We can prove who came up with an idea first. We can prove that some people failed to give credit to the origin of the idea. I like to try to find the origin of an idea and support them. I'm not alone in this. The artist who created the drum beat used by Dr. Dre from NWA started an online fundraiser and many people contributed. I think this is a great indicator that an honor system is possible and intellectual property law is not necessary. A lot of business people had the idea to grow and sell marijuana before 502 passed. This was a big risk when it was illegal, but people did it anyway because they saw the way marijuana could help people with various diseases and conditions. Some people broke the law, grew marijuana, and sold it because they knew it was a great way to make money. Most importantly, these people broke the law, grew marijuana, and sold it because they knew marijuana was safer than alcohol. While some people might think that marijuana growers are evil because they're creating something that is bad, those people are wrong. People who, when it was illegal, were providing folks with a safer recreational alternative to alcohol. Folks who wanted to make the safer choice to use marijuana instead of alcohol had to get it somewhere. That somewhere was the underground market before 502. A lot of people said that medical marijuana patients were faking it. This is a horrible thing to say. Many people benefited from the use of medical cannabis because they actually had an illness and it actually worked. The number of peer-reviewed studies is large and growing as testament to the fact that marijuana works to relieve symptoms and in some cases actually cure disease. Some folks who acquired a medical marijuana authorization and as a means of accessing cannabis at any one of many medical marijuana access points in Washington were good people. Even if their health situation was not particularly bad. Even if a person had no condition, even if a person had no disease, a person seeking a medical marijuana authorization was trying to make marijuana less of a crime for their self. Even if a person lied to get a medical marijuana authorization, one must consider the degree to which police would hurt them when they were caught using marijuana without it. Police often hurt marijuana users even if the marijuana user had an authorization. But at least with an authorization, the chances that police would hurt you were diminished. Police used to ruin people's lives when they caught them using marijuana. Having an authorization created a situation in which, when caught, the degree to which marijuana users' lives would be ruined was less severe. People who lied to get an authorization were trying to get a little protection from police who wanted to hurt them for making the safer choice to use marijuana. Police wanted to steer people away from marijuana and toward alcohol. So folks who know how safe marijuana is were, in a sense, being forced by police to lie if they wanted to be safe. Now that 502 has passed, we see a lot of people using words like pioneer and first, when this is simply not true. The real pioneers, the people who really did it first, were the people who grew and sold marijuana when it was illegal. The people who really did it first were growing marijuana in a room with a medical marijuana authorization hanging on the wall. The people who really did it first would take their harvest to the farmer's market, pull aromatic flower buds from mason jars using chopsticks at customer request. The people who really did it first did it way before the folks involved in 502 businesses did it. And if an honor system is possible, credit will be given where credit is due.
Thank you, Jared, for that inspiring speech. Well thought out. Gives me a lot to think about on different